Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever it is on planet Earth. We are broadcasting here from the center of the Civil War. More on that later. This program is dedicated to Charlie Kirk. This is the Jeremiah Gunn Show. Thank you for listening. We're going to get to your comments and your questions and concerns. This is the answer man. This is Dr. No, spelled K-N-O-W. It's time for you to question authority. Ask me anything. In corporate life, I was called a chief problem solver and a professor. And that's what I'll do. I'll profess. I'm a philosopher, prophet, fully trained, full of experience in life. I'm your reference desk, help desk, librarian of life. Dropping my phone as we speak. So I want to talk about, by the way, this is the Common Sense Network. Common Sense. It's dedicated to the author of that little book that gave birth to this nation, Thomas Paine. Gave birth to the greatest nation in the history of woman. So here's a little important safety tip. Again, thank you. Thank you for listening. And send me your comments. I don't care if you disagree, agree, hate, love. This goes out to you in the middle of this war. This goes out to you as an urgent plea. You can't say I didn't warn you. You can't say nobody told you. This is going to be different than any other podcasts that you've ever heard. I guarantee it, because I've heard them all. I've listened to them all for 20 years or more, and I know what their motivation is. This comes to you in the name of peace and love and truth. Without truth, no love and peace, no justice. So I want to talk today about stolen land. Does that ring a bell? Have you heard that phrase being thrown around? Stolen land. Stolen land. We're on stolen land. You're on stolen land. Everybody's on stolen land. We're going to debunk that right now in an easy to use, handy format. So let's talk about New York for a minute. This is the epicenter of a lot of the stolen land stuff, although there's some pop singer that was on the Grammys the other day who was gritching about stolen land, and my wife told me she has a $14 million house in Malibu, which I think is named after the Malibu Indians. But anyway, so we're all on stolen land. Let's start with New York for a minute, because they just elected a redistributionist who is going to be fair and square and share. So let's talk about true history, not what you'll learn if you go get a degree in history, not what you'll learn if you watch PBS, or which is 67% BS, like CBS. If you watch CBS, you'll see BS. We're going to even talk about the origin of that term BS, and we're going to correct it for today's modern world. So, stolen land. So, here's what happened. Let's go back, all the way back to the history of New York. So what happened was some native Siberians came here, and they came here on foot, according to National Geographic Society, about 2,000 years ago, over the Bering Strait, or they came by boat from Asia. Everything confirms this. So they walked here or came in a boat. We came in a boat and then walked around. That's the big difference between the two. So they came to New York. By the way, one timeout, important safety tip. Hopefully you're still listening. But I find that I don't know what my voice sounds like, but I've been told that it's mellifluous, and I've been told that it's monotonous, and that it may put you to sleep. We don't want that. So, there's a setting on your phone. I use it when I listen to books, recorded books. You can speed it up depending on the narrator. So if you would like to speed this up to 1.25, 1.5, 2.0, whatever you want, feel free. That's message is brought to you for your convenience and safety and security and enjoyment. All of those. Okay, so back to New York. A community of native Siberians or native Asians walked in there or came down the coast by boat, took over New York. They called it something else, which we'll tell you about that later. But and then their neighbor community came and took it from them. They stole the land after the initial native migrant Asians came and stole it. So they and then another community of native Siberians, migrants, came and took it from them. None of them bought it from the others. In fact, they would often take the people as slaves. Yeah, that's right. Slavery was here before it was here. Sorry, don't want to ruin everything for you. But so they came and preyed on their other communities that were not of their community, and he took it. In fact, not 1 square foot of maybe planet Earth, but surely the United States of America and Canada was not fought over by somebody long before we got here. Stolen from somebody. It's from thy neighbor. So then what happened is a community of Dutch people came here with a business goal in mind. They took over, they came to this island and they bought it. They bought it. It was sold, not stole. Sold, not stolen. So they bought it from the, and you may have learned this in school, you may have heard it, that it was $28 equivalent or something, or some beads or wampum or something. So the Dutch community did that. And then a little while later, the English community came and just stole it. Now, this is the first instance where New York was stolen. It was stolen from, it's not the first. The first was when the native Siberians stole it from God and then each other. So the Dutch came in and called it New Amsterdam. By the way, just as an aside, I always wondered why is it that the teams in New York, the Giants, the Knickerbockers, which is a Dutch name, why do these teams wear orange? Why are the Syracuse Orange men from Syracuse, New York? What's with the orange? Even the San Francisco Giants, my dad's favorite team, he tried out for them. When they moved to San Francisco, they kept the orange. Well, it dates back to, if you ever watch World Cup or anything like that, you'll see the Dutch wearing orange. The flag, the colors, and that flag was prohibited when the Nazis took over. The real Nazis took over Holland, and we had to liberate it. So it was named after William of Orange. So that's why you have all the orange flavor in New Amsterdam. So the English community comes over here, and they just flat out steal it from the Dutch. They did steal it. Stolen land. That's the first non-white a case of land being stolen. Okay, so another community of English came here because they were kicked out by the rest of their community of English. They called them the Pilgrims and Puritans. They came here and they wound up kicking out the original English, in the form of a revolution, and buying the land from the Indians that were there. That's in the story in the history of the Mayflower. They actually bought the land, and after the English community that came here through persecution and were legitimate immigrants, when the native Siberians stopped fighting with them and warring with them, Yeah, there's an interesting story in the Mayflower. You'll hear about the atrocities committed against the Wampanoag, or whatever they were called, in that area of Massachusetts. 47% of our states are named something like that after Indian tribes. We're going to talk a lot about Native Siberians. It's a fascinating subject to me. I've studied it, and I'm a real authority on it. I've put together resources on it that you just can't find anywhere else. And they're true. They're true history. They're not this pandering nonsense. So, the Mayflower, in the story of the Mayflower, the settlers, the legitimate immigrants, they were being asked to if they wanted to buy all this land from the neighboring tribes of community of Native Siberians that were migrants that were looking to sell their stolen land. And they thought, this is great. This is a real estate boom. And they were buying and buying and buying. And one of the pilgrims had the wherewithal to say, I wonder what they're doing with all this money. And all of a sudden they're interested in selling their real estate. Selling, not stealing, not selling the land that they stole. So what they did was they looked into it, and they found out by putting out some feelers that what they're doing is they're buying guns. They're buying guns so they can kill all these guys they just sold the land to. Now, I've seen a lot of bait and switch. I've seen a lot of shady deals in my real estate experience in life. Not a lot, but too many. And that isn't one where you sell them the land and then come kill them later. That was a new one to me. So they come over. When the English community, Puritans, first founders of America, first settlers from that area, from that community, they. By the way, I hope I don't drive you nuts using the word community, but it's such a cute, popular word right now. It's just such fun. My community, your community, my community. We don't have a United States community anymore. That's gone. We're balkanized past that point. So when we finally stopped fighting against the native Siberian migrants who were trying to kill us for the stolen land that they stole, they they had a couple of ideas. These tribes that were here, these communities of tribes. You may know that what preceded our revolution was the French and Indian War. It was actually a causal factor to the revolution because of the argument over taxation. The English community over there across the pond wanted us to pay for it. So what the native Siberians did in that case, it was called the 7 Years' War, or the French and Indian War. Some of the tribes sided with the English. Some of the tribes sided with the French. Why do you think that is? They had to place their bet on a horse that they thought would win. But it was more of the French and the French community and the English community playing one against the other. That's what they did. They played them against each other because why? Because they were already enemies. They were already enemies who had been fighting over the land they stole from each other. More about that later. But when we kicked out the English, one of the things we did was we kind of made good with the Dutch, who had the first shot at legitimacy there in New York. We elected a Dutch man to the White House. He was only number 8, way back, right near the year 1800 on our founding, pretty close. So we elected a Dutchman who spoke Dutch at home. He was the first non-English, Anglo-Saxon or whatever, in the area, in the White House, in the country. So the So let's talk about this idea of fair distribution, redistribution, and so on. So you know, uh, one of the things you'll hear if you go to a university of destruction or even high school, I saw it on a game show. Are you smarter than a fifth grader? Turns out this guy was not, although I think he either won or came as close as you can to the $1 million. But he was bashing Columbus just like a parrot, Churchill said, when the eagles are silent, the parrots begin to jabber. That's the problem. That's what we got going on right now. So, do we want to be fair? Do we want to be fair and get things faired up and squared up? Sure, that sounds good. Why don't we do that? So here's what we'll do. We elected, not we, but a lot of low information voters, useful idiots, spoiled brats. The acronym for them is actually awful. Affluent, white, urban, female, leftist. They had their way, and they elected a communist, a Muslim communist. There's a real tight connection between communist Marxists, tyrants, and Islam. And we'll talk about that later, but it's undeniable. This stuff's going on in Iran right now. You know who put the original Ayatollah Khomeini in power? It was the commies. Yep. And the French leftist-leaning commies. And Jimmy Carter, who, another story for another day. So he created that nightmare. And 47 years later, for my dear Persian friends, we are maybe going to help them have a real country like they used to. So let's do this, okay? This guy, Mom Dummy, who was elected mayor of New York and ran as a communist Democrat, same thing. I repeat myself, as Mark Twain said. So he's got a lot of stolen land in his heritage. He's got a lot of stolen land. I mean, I think his parents are very wealthy. Very wealthy. He's a silver spoon, Nepo baby, whatever. Never really did anything with his life except get in here and play the platitude panderer and work his way to the top. Okay, so let's take his mommy and daddy's house, because God knows if they're from Pakistan or India, whatever they're from, whose land they stole over there to be able to get over here and then steal a bunch of land here. Let's take their house away and give it to people more deserving. Let's redistribute the wealth. Let's redistribute it, okay? Because, the collectivists like Mom Dummy, they like to claim, the people that they claim to revere would do that. They'd take the nice big houses and give them out to a bunch of people, make them into a mini dorm. Why not? Now, he might have a governor's mansion on stolen land. I don't know if he moved in or not. Jerry Brown maybe didn't live in it or something as a big virtue signal. But let's take that. Let's take that governor's mansion and let's move in some of these unhoused people. No, he's letting them die on the street. He's not sharing the warmth of collectivism. That's what he said in his inaugural. The warmth of collectivism. Look at a satellite photo of North Korea someday compared to South Korea, and you'll see what the warmth of collectivism is. So let's take his house and fill it up with these people. They can not die of freezing to death on the street. But you know what? The guy his hero, his founding fathers, guys like Lenin, they said one death is a tragedy and a million is a statistic. They said if you're going to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. Okay? So collectivists like him, let's take it a little step farther. Let's be really fair. Elizabeth Warren, became very wealthy. She's the one that's called Pocahontas, Faucawhaunt, us, United States, Pocahontas. Now, she scammed her way into, well, maybe she did this legitimately, but she made a bunch of money flipping houses with her husband, I guess. Then she stolen houses, of course. Of course, it was all stolen. She stole people's virtue and honor, these native Siberians. She stole their honor by claiming to be one, and Harvard celebrated that they had one on their staff. They had a real, genuine native Siberian. And people blew the whistle on that, namely the guy in the White House. He called her out. You know, he said he's more Indian than she is. By the way, a quick aside in this Indian idea. I took my kids camping to a campground it was a water park and is run by a local band of community of Indians. And the truck broke down, and I had to go to the office and call, and there's an Indian gentleman in there, native migrant Siberian. And he, I said to him while I was waiting to use the phone or whatever we were talking, I just asked him a little bit. I said, let me ask you a question. Do you want to be called Native American? Or do you prefer, he said, Indian? It didn't take him long at all. He just looked at me and said, Indian. And I said, so this native Siberian, Native American stuff is all just hoo-ha for the professor elites, right? And he just kind of shrugged his shoulders. And then I noticed on the wall behind him, I hadn't seen it before, there was a big poster. It said, quote, "Be proud you're an Indian." You might have heard in the news that the Washington Redskins, there's a woman whose grandfather posed for that iconic image that they use on their uniforms and their logo, their team logo, that they're not real happy with this, They're not happy about it. There's a team in Long Island called the Indians, and the tribe is suing because the high school got rid of that name. These are always these nanagers, these social engineers. They're always trying to help somebody, but they're only helping themselves, virtue signaling. So let's take Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas. She's got a bunch of houses. Good for her. Good for her. But, we paid for those houses. We paid for the streets leading up to them. So you need to give those away. Give those all away, including Martha's Vineyard, where your Obama wound up. You don't think that land belonged to Native Americans? You don't think that was stolen? Bernie has 3 houses. He's from Vermont. Why he and Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas are standing behind Mom Dummy in New York City while they're being sworn in, you tell me. I can't figure it out. I can't figure that out, except that, the Democrat Party is synonymous with absolutely synonymous with the Marxist Party, the Socialist Party. So are they going to do that? Are they all of these offals, these asses that they rode in on, Mom Dummies and the Bernies and the John Kerrys and all these other Marxist millionaires, are they going to give up their jobs? Are they going to give up their degrees? Why don't all these embarrassed white offals, why don't they give up their job? I asked one of them once. She was a newspaper writer, reporter, and I asked her, I said, what are you waiting for to give your job and your condo and everything you stole back to the blacks or browns or white blacks or white Hispanics that you stole this from? Go ahead, put up or shut up. But, a long time ago, in fact, I didn't know that Karl Marx went back this far, but there was a great, brilliant poet. He wrote a poem called, "What is a Communist? What is a communist? One who has yearnings for equal division of unequal earnings. Idler or bungler or both, he is willing to fork out his copper and pocket your shilling." Has anybody heard an apology from Pocahontas for claiming to be a Native American and getting a job at Harvard and then getting into the Senate based on that? You know, Massachusetts, the ones, John Adams, John Hancock, Sam Adams, these are the people that led the fight against taxation without representation. And now they're electing the tax-a-twits, you know, the senator, the pantheon of senators that they have put in office and almost in the White House. It's just real simple, folks. Real simple. Do you go first? Put up or shut the flock up? What is a communist? One who has yearnings for equal division. Yeah, what about the redistribution of wealth, guys? How come nobody cares about this? What is a communist? One who has yearnings for equal division of unequal earnings, idler or bungler or thief, or both. He is willing to fork out his copper and pocket your shilling. Well, this was probably the best explanation of the two camps of communities that are struggling for the wheel of the ship of state. Here it is. I guess Ayn Rand.
The Creator stands on his own judgment. The parasite follows the opinions of others. The Creator thinks. The parasite copies. The Creator produces. The parasite loots. The Creator's concern is the conquest of nature. The parasite's concern is the conquest of man. The Creator requires independence. He neither serves nor rules. He deals with men by free exchange and voluntary choice. The parasite seeks power. He wants to bind all men together in common action and common slavery. He claims that man is only a tool for the use of others, that he must think as they think, act as they act, and live in selfless, joyless servitude to any need but his own. Look at history. Everything we have, every great achievement has come from the independent work of some independent mind. Every horror and destruction came from attempts to force men into a herd of brainless, soulless robots, without personal rights, without personal ambition, without will, hope, or dignity. It is an ancient conflict. It has another name: the individual against the collective. Our country, the noblest country in the history of men, was based on the principle of individualism, the principle of man's inalienable rights. It was a country where a man was free to seek his own happiness, to gain and produce, not to give up and renounce, to prosper, not to starve, to achieve, not to plunder, to hold as his highest possession a sense of his personal value, and as his highest virtue, his self-respect. Look at the results. That is what the collectivists are now asking you to destroy, as much of the earth has been destroyed.
Boom. Boom. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you. And go in peace and love and truth. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Doesn't matter what it is. Or if you have a question. But you don't need to doubt any of this stuff. I am the fact checker. As Fauci, the fascist, famously said, I am the science, but I really, truly am the fact checker. Okay? That's all I've done all my whole life, is check these facts. So until next time, thank you. Thank you for listening, and join us again, please.